From Cowork 591 in beautiful downtown Jesup, Iowa, this is the birthplace of Bohemian Resistance. We are the Bohemian Underground with producer Blake Tempus and co-host Dale Rueber. A special guest tonight, Brian Borland. I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is the news for September 1st, 2000. And we are sponsored by Mickey D's Pizza and Lobster. The Phils are kind sponsors of the podcast. Include them at your wedding, graduation, or festival plans. Don't wait. Their schedule's filling up for 2025. They're sponsoring a traveling art show for the Steve Brown Art Center. Thanks to them for including the art show in their travels. Another sponsor who's been with us since the birth of the Steve Brown Art Center is Derek's Repair. It's located in Jesup, Iowa. Contact Derek Marty for your car repair needs. Also, check out the podcast, What Is Up with our friend Bubba Seaman. Tonight we're going to talk a lot about a lady from Dale's area and a little farther north in Maynard, a lady named Carolyn Nicholson. She's known as the spark that lit the Maynard's glory. In the annals of Iowa history, few names shine with incandescent brilliance of Carolyn Nicholson, a daughter of Maynard, Iowa, a town of just 350 souls. Carolyn wasn't merely a basketball player. She was a phenomenon, a 5'4" dynamo. I watched her play the other night. I watched the game, or parts of the game, who defied expectations, rewrote records, and became the beating heart of a team that captured the imagination of the entire state of Iowa. The year was 1956. Elvis was on the radio. Eisenhower was in the White House, and gymnasiums across Iowa, girls were playing a version of basketball that was uniquely their own. 6-on-6. It was a game of grace and grit, where 3 players stayed on offense and 3 on defense, and where scoring wasn't just a stat, it was a spectacle. And no one embodied that spectacle more than Carolyn Nicholson. Carolyn's senior season at Maynard High School was the stuff of legend. Alongside her sister Glenda, a towering 5'11" presence, and 5'11" is a big lady, a tall girl, Carolyn led the Maynard Blue Devils to the state championship, defeating Garrison 62-51 in front of a roaring crowd of about 15,000 fans. Carolyn scored 25 points in that final game, earning most valuable player honors and cementing her status as a state icon. But her greatness wasn't confined to a single tournament game. Over a high school career, Carolyn racked up an astonishing 79 points. A feat that would be jaw-dropping in any era. She once scored 52 points in a single game, a performance that left fans breathless and opponents bewildered. Her speed, passion, and court vision made her unstoppable. She wasn't just playing basketball. She was composing poetry in motion. For decades, Carolyn's story remained largely untold. She married, raised a family, and lived modestly in Wisconsin, never boasting about her athletic feats. Her son Brian Borland knew his father Glenn had played college basketball for the Wisconsin Badgers, but Carolyn, she never spoke of her own glory days. It wasn't until a 50-year reunion of the 1956 championship team that Brian discovered the truth. I had no idea, he said. She never talked about it. The weekend changed his life. He learned that his mother had once been the darling of Iowa, a superstar whose name was whispered with reverence in farm towns and school gyms. Inspired, Brian wrote Maynard 8 Miles, a book that not only chronicled his mother's journey, but also celebrated the golden age of 6-on-6 girls basketball in Iowa. It was a beautiful game. God, it was a beautiful game. The title refers to the distance between Maynard and Owine. I've passed that sign many times, Brian. I lost my place here. The book captured, that's a wonderful thing about editing there. The title refers to the distance between Maynard and Owine, where his father played a symbolic bridge between 2 basketball legacies. The book captured the spirit of a time when girls' basketball was a cultural force, long time before Title IX reshaped the landscape. Carolyn's story is now poised to reach an even wider audience. Angelo, I believe it's Pizzo, did I say it right?
Yeah, Angelo Piso, yep.
The acclaimed screenwriter behind Hoosiers and Rudy is developing a film based on Maynard 8 Miles. Formerly Wisconsin coach Bo Ryan, who read the book in one sitting, is co-producing. I think it's better than Hoosiers, Ryan said. It just mirrors life. Stuff like this, you just can't make it up. The film will not only honor Carolyn's legacy, but also spotlight a forgotten chapter of American sports history, one where small-town girls packed stadiums, inspired communities, and played with a passion that rivaled any professional league. Carolyn Nicholson's story is more than a tale of athletic triumph. It's a testament to humility, resilience, and the quiet power of women who led by example. She never sought the spotlight, yet she earned it through sheer excellence. She never bragged, yet her achievements spoke louder than words. In an era when women's sports were often marginalized, Carolyn and her teammates were trailblazers. They filled arenas, won hearts, and proved that greatness knows no gender. Her induction to the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union Hall of Fame in 1971 was a fitting tribute. You will see that statue later on. But her true legacy lives on in every girl who picked up a basketball and dares to dream. Carolyn passed away in 2009. Her spirit endures. In Maynard, her name still evokes pride. In Iowa, her story is a cherished piece of history, and soon, through a film and memory, she will inspire a new generation. She was more than a scorer, more than a champion. Carolyn Nicholson was the soul of a team, the pride of a town, and the embodiment of what sports can mean to a community. In the tapestry of Iowa's basketball heritage, her thread grows brightest. And for those who believe that greatness must be loud, Carolyn's life offers a gentle rebuttal. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones whispered across generations, waiting to be rediscovered. We are here tonight with Carolyn's son, Brian, who wrote Maynard 8 Miles. Brian, welcome. I've been so excited about this week, Brian.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And what a beautiful tribute there to my mom. Thank you very much for doing that. That was pretty touching for me. So thank you for reading that.
Thank you for being on our podcast. Like I say, the 6-on-6 game is special to me, and I know that area of Iowa is special to Dale.
Yeah.
Dale, of the three of us, or the four of us, Dale listened to that game live, which is so neat.
Well, KOEL radio I'm sure that's who was doing it out of Oelwein.
Yeah.
And they did the games, the tournament games, and I remember listening to that game with my brothers and my mother and my dad, and it was quite exciting for them because my mother and father grew up in that area, in the Westgate area and this sort of thing, and so they knew the dads and some of the moms of people in that area, and so it was I remember it quite well.
So Brian, first off, welcome, and tell us where you're living now and what you're doing.
Well, before I do that, I just would like to say again, thank you for having me on. I did a little research on Steve Brown, who we're honoring with what you're doing, and he it sounds like he was all about encouraging people, dream big, have big goals, set big ideas. That was my mom as an 8-year-old girl. That's basically who she was when she was an 8-year-old girl. So I wanted to thank you for this opportunity. So I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I've been here most of my life. When my dad turned down Iowa in high school to play college basketball at Iowa, he took a scholarship to play for the Badgers, Wisconsin Badgers, and he came to Madison. It turned into the team captain, and then when my mom graduated from Maynard, she moved up to Madison with him. And they never left Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So that's why I still live in Madison.
We won't hold that against you, Brian. A fact that you and I have talked about before, your dad's coach in high school was my coach in high school, Jack Darling. And
that's incredible.
It is. It is.
That's absolutely incredible because Jack Darling had a huge impact on my dad, not only in high school, but the story I told you when he got to Wisconsin. And he almost wanted to go back to Iowa because he was so homesick. And Jack Darling was the one that talked him into staying at Wisconsin. It's a great story.
I hope we have some time with us to talk about your dad's experience at the University of Wisconsin, because in reading your book, I thought that was very interesting, especially about the freshman team beating the varsity all the time. I just thought that was very interesting how that could happen.
Yeah, and back then, remember, freshmen could not play on the varsity team.
Yeah.
So then they would just scrimmage them.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of good stories about my dad and his basketball experience here at Wisconsin. So we can get into that later if you want.
I really enjoyed that part of it. So
what took you toward the book, Brian? Tell us, lead us in the direction that got you started with the book.
So I'll never forget this. It was February 2006. And I was at my parents' living room. So they lived in a condo at this point. They moved from our family home and they lived in a condo. And I was in their living room or kitchen area. And they just brought up the fact, hey, Brian, we're going to Des Moines to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Do you want to go with us to Des Moines? And I'm like, well, what anniversary are you talking about? And my mom says, well, me and your Aunt Glenda, we won the state tournament in Iowa in 1956. And I'm like, what? What state tournament? What are you talking about? And that's how I found out. And then I accompanied them. So of course I said, yes, I'll go. I didn't know anything about 6-on-6. I didn't know any of her teammates. I didn't know anything other than I was going to Des Moines. And once I got there, I was just overwhelmed on who she was back in 1956. And the stories just kept coming at me. And I'm like, this can't be true. Like, what do you mean you set the scoring record for 14 years? What do you mean you're in the Hall of Fame? What do you mean you won the state tournament and you're the MVP? What is going on here? And it was so overwhelming. And the thing that I did though is I videotaped it for some reason. I decided if I'm going to go there, I'm not even sure what to expect, but I'm going to videotape it. So I'm in the hotel room with Glenda and my mom, and I'm literally saying, okay, what happened and who'd you play and who'd you beat? And the stories just kept coming and coming, and the laughs, and it was just incredible. And then at halftime, they got introduced, and I was just overwhelmed with because I also found out at that time on that weekend that how popular 6-on-6 was. I'm like, what do you mean 1,000 people are at your game? So I just promised myself after that weekend, I was changed. On the way home, I just promised myself, I'm going to dig into this thing. And the story kept getting better and better and better. And the more I found out about so many different cool stories about the Maynard team, the Fish family, how Maynard didn't even have a team when my mom was growing up. And it just all came to a head. And I started to write the book, and I ended up writing Maynard 8 Miles.
That's neat how that happened, isn't it? I can't believe it. Just seems like impossible that she wouldn't have mentioned anything about that, or that your dad wouldn't have mentioned something about that, because that was a huge accomplishment in her life. But I know people did things differently in those days, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think at that time, at that time frame, like she could have gone to play college, right? She had offers, and she wanted to be close to my dad, right? They were dating, and she just wanted to be close to him and start a family. And once she got to Madison, she, must have just turned the page and wanted to be a great mother and wife, and just kind of, but I always tell the story that she bowled in Madison, and I knew she was in a bowling league, but I guess she was in a bowling league for 10, 15 years or whatever. There's like 30 or 40 people in the bowling league. Not one person in that group, her group of friends, knew she ever played a second of basketball until my book came.
Isn't that amazing? That's just amazing.
I would have had a little sign I wore. In your book, you mentioned it was some of the parents that had to go to the school board to get basketball into Maynard. And was that your grandfather? Was that her father that did that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story, too, that I didn't realize that's quite interesting, is Maynard didn't have a basketball team back in the 50s. They didn't have enough players, they said, or there was no interest, or they just didn't have a team. And my mom and Glenda would listen to the games on the radio, Dale, like you did, right? And they would just dream. Their dream was to go to the state tournament, and they just they didn't have enough players. But my mom and my aunts, my Aunt Luann and Aunt Betty, so there's 4 of the Nicholson girls, and then I have an Uncle Jim, but they would practice and play all the time against each other in the hayloft. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is they were told that they didn't have enough players, was what the school board was telling my grandfather. Yes, Glenn Nicholson, my mom's dad.
Yeah.
You don't have enough players. Well, as luck would have it, the Fish family moves into town, and I spend a lot of time not a lot, but I've seen Barb Fish, the youngest Fish, probably 15 times. I mean, she helped me with a lot of the details and stuff. But anyway, the Fish family moved to the Maynard farming community, and they had 4 daughters. So the 2 dads, the Fish, the dad of the Fish family and my grandpa go to the school board and go, "We got 8." Just between us. We got 8. And that's what kicked off the Maynard. I believe it was 1950, 51, something like that, and they didn't have a coach at the time. Like, okay, we're going to have this team, but there's no coach. So they finally found a coach. And of course, my mom's only, 11, 12 years old, right? She's not ready to play. So they got a Maynard team, and then the older Fish girl was a star. My older aunts were very good. Mm-hmm. And they kind of started the whole thing, and Maynard was pretty competitive, right? Even though they just started, they had a couple really good years. And then my mom made the team as an 8th grader, and she started playing. And then they got a new coach, Mel Cooperschmidt, showed up my mom's junior year, and that really set it off. One of the things that I talked to my mom about is, again, I told you that they had this dream of going to the state tournament, and they would listen to games on the radio. My mom, as an 8-year-old girl, carved into her bedroom wall, Maynard State Champs, 1956.
Oh, wow.
When she was 8 years old.
Uh-huh. And
I remember her telling me that she was worried that she got the math wrong. Like, was 1956 my senior year? Like, did I get the math right? But anyway, so they got this team put together, and then they got a real basketball coach, a successful basketball coach, uh-huh. Mel Cooper. And then for 3 years in a row, though, Maynard got to the championship or the sectional final, like the last game to get to the state tournament. 3 years in a row they got there, and they lost, and they were heartbroken. And then my mom's senior year was the last chance they had. Now, Dorothy Fish and Snooky Becker were also seniors. So they had 3 seniors, and then my Aunt Glenda, Virginia Henniges, was a sophomore, and Dorothy Fettgetter was a junior. But they had the nucleus of 3 seniors, mm-hmm. the 1956, and it was their last chance. And so that's part of the story too.
Well, I was going to say, did you, after Cooperschmidt, a man named Gene Kling became the coach in Maine, did you ever meet him?
Yes, I met him he came to one of my book signings.
Okay, it was
really cool to meet him. Yeah, I don't think he was the coach. Like, I think there was 1 or 2 years after Mel Cooperschmidt left, and then then Gene Kling came in. So there was another coach for 1 or 2 years, but yeah, he was super successful at Maynard. Yeah. And I did meet him a couple times.
I remember when he took over, it was big news in the paper and everything, and he played softball, fast pitch softball in the summer in a league my brother played in. So I saw him play, and he was just as competitive as you would want any of your basketball players to be. He was that kind of guy with that crew cut, and got his nose right in there. Very competitive man, and had a very successful career as a basketball coach in a couple different schools. So
yes, he did, and I had the pleasure to meet him. I think I met him 2 or 3 times, and I also met Mel Cooperschmidt at the 50-year reunion.
Oh, okay.
So it was really nice to meet with him and talk to him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have here, before we go on, we'll give you a chance to catch your breath here. And I have here the 5 most unique rules in the 6-on-6 game, all right? And if you have a different list, that's all right. This is my list, Brian. So, all right, here you go. Number 5, the best shooter shot free throws in the bonus when there was a foul in the forward court. Mm-hmm. So let's say the forward fouled the guard.
The ball would come over to the other half.
The ball went over the other half, and your best free throw shooter got to shoot free throw. Oh my gosh, you could score a lot of points fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's number 5. Number 4, guards couldn't take the ball out of the forward's hands outside of the lane. So if it was outside the lane,
You put it right in
the
their
forward
face,
could
yeah.
stand right there in their face. Okay. Number 3, they only got to dribble twice.
And that is unbelievable. Think about the game today versus you could dribble.
Yeah.
So think about that. If you're the out forward, like my mom was, and you're at the top of the key, you can only dribble twice.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those cracker box gyms, though, twice was plenty. And they had some real small gyms in those days.
She could go a long ways quick, though, your mother. I watched your mother on that video that you talked about as we started. Only forwards could shoot. The guards never had the chance to shoot. They wanted to. Don't get me wrong. They wanted to. A lot of practices. They got their shots up in practice.
Yeah.
I promise you. And number 1, it was a 2-court system. And you talked about this at the book signing over in Independence. At one point in Iowa's history, there was a 3-court system. So
Yeah, it was if the guard had the ball and she had her little pinky on the half-court line, that was a turnover. And the other team got the ball because she was not allowed to go into the forward court. And so I always thought the referees, there were 2 referees, and they had a choreography because when that ball went through the bat, one would grab it, one would run.
Pretty.
They get the ball to the forward at the half circle, and they would go. And those referees were really moving. And to do the boys' game was entirely different set of rules for them, and the way but with the girls' game, they were always really getting that ball out of the basket because they did the rebounding. Everyone went through.
Yeah.
And then up the court, but one guy running, one guy getting the ball to the. It was just. It's like
It was a fast-paced game, right? It was fast-paced.
Oh yeah,
right?
very fast. Yeah, because the referees had to keep the game going if they're going to get to 100 points.
if you watch New Providence, and I'm in the crowd. I'm in the crowd of the New Providence games. There's multiple games, same crowd, multiple games. They moved us one time, I think, for 4 games, Brian, if I remember right. But fortunately, they did a low budget. They didn't have officials that knew the rules of the game very well. They didn't know how to get it out of the net and move it up the floor like Dale talked about. And it was a beautiful game. So, Dale's right. It was a lot of fun to watch. But those are my top 5.
So Dale, just to add to that, so the first time I met my mom's teammates, except for Dorothy Fish, who had passed away before. But Dorothy Fettgetter was one of the guards. And I'll never forget the first time I met her. I'm learning about the 6-on-6 game, and she was pretty big too, right? And I'm like, well, so if you got the rebound, then would you just dribble it up or how would you get it to the half court then? And she looked at me and she said, I'd get the rebound, I'd make a baseball pass, and I'd fire it to your mom at half court.
Yeah.
Now, was she the guard that was at the Independence book signing?
No, that was Barb Fish.
Okay.
That was the youngest Barb Fish.
Okay.
And she was a freshman on my mom's team.
I was very young when, in Hazleton, the team I remember, the high school team, the 3 guards were rough and tough girls. I mean, really rough and tough. And then the 3 forwards looked like they could be prom queen. And I thought, well, that's how they chose who got to play where. Because the good-looking girls get to play forward and score points, and the tough girls, they get to play guard.
I was taught the 6-on-6 game by Wayne Kramer, a longtime 6-on-6 coach. And Wayne always said, this is how you choose the guards. You take the girls fishing, and the girls that aren't afraid to put the worms on the hooks are your guards.
So I wasn't too far off, was I?
Okay. You weren't. So, but back to your story here, Brian. You went with your folks. Your mother was inducted to the Hall of Fame before that, though, right? Into the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union.
In 1971. She was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Yep.
Now you have that trophy behind you. Can you show the audience that trophy?
Sure. This Hall of Fame trophy. Yeah, there's a story behind this thing too, if you can see it. But so what I remember about that Hall of Fame weekend is we went and stayed with my grandma Ruth. I was 8 or whatever, but we didn't know what we were doing in Maynard. We were just staying with my grandma. We didn't know my mom and dad were going to this Hall of Fame function. We were just playing rummy with my grandma Ruth.
Yeah.
We didn't know why we were there, but no. So this trophy is kind of funny because I went up to my mom and I said, I just remember as a kid, there was this big trophy. Like, I don't know what it was, Mom, but you had this trophy or something. I remember. She goes, "Oh, you must be talking about my Hall of Fame trophy." And I'm like, I don't know what. Well, that's down in the basement. Where? So I go down in the basement and I find this trophy under a paint tarp. Yeah. And I'm like, so I said, "Mom, I'm taking this trophy and it's going in my office." Like, but most people would have this in their living room, right?
Yeah,
That's centerpiece, not my mother. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, it is. That's a big deal in the Iowa State tournament every year. Is the girls inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
So here's a trivia question for you. On the 1956 team, there's 4 Hall of Famers on the same team.
Wow. So Glenda, your Aunt Glenda, your mother,
my mom,
and Virginia
Henniges,
yeah,
and Marianne Rocky was I believe a sophomore on that team. She made it in the Hall of Fame as a defender.
Okay, that's something. Yeah.
I loved watching the portions of the championship game that I could watch. There's like they did the Parade of Champions. We qualified in 2000, and they still had the Parade of Champions going then, and that was a huge deal to be part of that.
Yeah, I've seen tapes of that, and in my research, that is a huge that Iowa Girls State basketball tournament is. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but nobody's proved me wrong. Back in that time frame, that is the most successful high school sporting event, male or female. Somebody tell me in the 50s a more successful high school sporting event than that.
Yeah, I couldn't. And it was interesting because in Iowa, they had the boys' sports. When the girls, they made their own association, and they were just for the girls. They weren't trying to just appease the girls, but they were just for the girls, and they were all for the girls. And that's why it got so great, because they just pushed really hard for the girls. And it was just a wonderful thing. So
it's the only state in the union that does that has 2 separate unions. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you saw here, you live close enough, and this might be swearing to you, but did you see that Jan Jensen threw out the first pitch at the Cubs game here recently?
I did, and me and Jan text each other once in a while, as I've met her a few times. Yeah. And a little secret here is my dad was a huge Cubs fan, so I kind of grew up as a Cubs fan. So when I saw that, I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever, that Jan Jensen got to throw the first pitch out at the Cub game. That was cool.
Well, the reason I bring that up is I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Cooley a couple times and be in his office. And Dr. Cooley was a stockholder in the Cubs in the Cubs organization.
Oh.
And he had Cubs stuff all over his office.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I sent a message to Jan. I said, Dr. Cooley'd be proud of you, Coach, for throwing that out. Yeah.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's incredible. That you own part of the club.
Yeah. Announcers on Iowa women's basketball games will say this every now and then, that must be interesting for these girls that Iowa's recruiting to find out that their coach averaged 66 points a game when she was in high school.
Yeah.
I think that'd be, whoa, okay, how'd you do that? But I just think that'd be kind of a neat thing to almost realize that your coach was that good a player.
So now, Brian, you've become a pretty good historian of the 6-on-6 game. Can you give me, and I'll bloviate a little bit here, and I'll share with you a top 5. Can you give me a top 5 of the greatest 6-on-6 players in Iowa history? I'll let you think about it a little bit, and I will share mine.
Wow, that is. Well, I'm assuming I can't say any of the Maynard girls.
Oh, no, you can't.
I think
It's your list.
so. Lynn Lorenzen comes to mind.
Okay, she's my number one.
Yeah.
Very good.
Why can't I remember her name? The person that broke my mom's record after 14 years. Denise Long. Denise Long.
She's my number two.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're 2 for 2.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about this.
I have.
There's what? So I'll stop at those 2. So why don't you give me a couple?
Okay.
That I didn't get.
That was a good move on your part. Yes.
I have Jan Jensen, number 3.
Okay.
Jensen was at Elko Kimballton. She averaged 65.7 points per game her senior year. Later led the nation in scoring at Drake. Like
Yeah.
Dale
Oh yeah.
said.
Yep.
Number 4, from Minneapolis, Deb Coates.
Oh yeah. Very good.
Deb Coates.
Yeah.
Yep.
She scored 5,103 points. She was a big college star. And number 5, and you talked about her at your book signing. How do you say your name? Sandra, is it Fiete? Fiete, Fiete from Garnaville?
Yes, Sandra Feet. Yeah.
Yeah, I have her number 5. Now there's one arguably that should be on there from Everly, Jeanette Olson.
Oh sure.
Yeah, Jeanette Olson was good. Yep.
Yeah.
I know all those. I actually have a list of my original research. I came up with like 20 either players or moments or something that I have somewhere. I just don't have it in front of me, but it's kind of interesting. But yeah, there's, and it is kind of, you almost have to break it up into, like, that's comparing, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. It's like, you almost got to look at the decade because it's a different game, right? But no, all those are good. I would agree with all those. I mean, they're all great players. But yeah, Denise Long, a lot of people don't realize this. The person that broke my mom's scoring record after 14 years got drafted by the NBA, not the WNBA, the NBA. So I said, Mom, if somebody's going to break your record, that's probably not a bad person to break.
Yeah. And you said Everly, was it the Everly Cattle Feeders? Is that what?
Was it the Everly Cowgirls? I think it was
the Everly Cattle Feeders is what I remember. What a nickname or a team mascot that was. But that's probably lost in history because they're probably part of some other school district now. But
they were still separate back in 2008. They were still.
Oh, is that right?
And they had they had a huge gym out there. Basketball 6-on-6 was still giant in the 2000s back out in Everly. So Brian, how did the possibility of the movie come about for your book?
Well, that is a great question. So Angelo Pizzo, who lives in Bloomington, Indiana, who wrote Hoosiers and Rudy, and more recently there's a movie called The Hill, a baseball movie, and he's done a bunch of other things, but he's probably more famous for Hoosiers and Rudy. It's a long story how I got connected with him, but he agreed to meet with me in Bloomington, Indiana. So I drove down there. It was like, I think, a 7 or 8 hour drive, and I met him. It was interesting because I walked into I met him at his house, super nice guy. But he basically was just saying, hey, I get a lot of these requests, to do screenplays, and I really don't like working with authors that much, just because I kind of want to have my own creativity, and sometimes authors, want a certain way, and whatever. So we have this discussion, and I'm just thinking, I'm not sure if this is going to work out, because this is what he's saying, and it wasn't in a bad way. He was just saying that, and then he asked me why I wrote the book, and I go, why did I write the book? And he goes, yeah, why did you write Maynard 8 Miles? And I said, to honor my mother. And he goes, you didn't write this, for other reasons, and the conversation shifted then. This was a passion, and he loves the story. He said he always wanted to do a movie from the female aspect, but he's never really had the story until he read my book. And then he said he did want a little bit of freedom, change some things up, or, make it a little more compelling. And I said, as long as you keep the spirit of the book and my mom and my dad and the whole story, you can feel free to. So, we went for about a year or so, he worked on it, and, he had some suggestions, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit. It was all super positive, and then we landed on the final screenplay, which is incredible. The guy's super smart.
I heard the real Rudy was a speaker at an event I was at a few months ago. He's on a speaking tour, and he was talking about how he pushed for his story to become a movie, and he flew out to California a couple of times. He almost had to break into people's homes to get them to talk to him, and sounded like you had a much easier time than he did.
Well,
getting his story written.
Well, so. And that is true. And Angelo has told that Rudy really, really kept after him, right? And so this wasn't easy by any means, but it was just more of, we just connected. And then I brought up the Bo Ryan. He's a Bo Ryan, the Hall of Fame basketball coach. He's part of this project. And when I threw his name out there, Angelo's like, oh, so Bo Ryan's in this too? And I said, yeah. And, the governor wrote the foreword, and we've got all the, and so there was a lot there. But I spent about 8 hours with him that day. And once that all came about, then we decided we'd try to, work on a movie. And then what happened was, and this is just unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? Is we get this screenplay done and COVID hit. So then everything stops for 2 years. Then we start to pick it up again. And I don't know if you heard about this writer's strike and this actor strike happens. So it's like all these things are happening. So we literally lost, 4+ years of this. And so, but we're excited. He's still very passionate about the project, and we're doing everything we can to try to get this movie made.
Okay, so I was just going to wonder about casting. I mean, when you make sports movies, it's hard to find actors that can actually play the sport and look like they know something about the game. And so I was thinking that might be kind of hard for you to do.
Yeah. So what I've heard with the group of people that we're working with, and again, we haven't got them. We haven't solidified a deal yet with anybody. But the concern is, to your point, Dale, the basketball has to be real, or this is not going to work. Yeah. And so they are actively thinking about who is an athlete. That can play for sure. My mom and Glenda. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Other than there's that. Those are the two main people that probably. So that's a great question, and that's not lost on that's something we have to figure out.
It just seemed like that's the hardest part of any kind of sports movie is finding actors who can also play ball. And sometimes they look pretty pathetic.
I don't think anybody has that in mind, right?
Yeah.
They're going to do this the right way.
So you're to the point now where you're trying to get it filmed. You have a script, and you have it like a company bought it. Do you have to make it, or like to produce it, or how's all that work?
There's a couple different options, but right now, obviously the script is done. We've got a production company working on trying to partner with somebody to get this movie done, and there's lots of discussions around this. And we're just, from my perspective, we got to find the right partner. We need people to do this that love the story, love the women empowerment story, that. And so that's, I can't say much more than that at this time, but there are a bunch of things going on where we're actively seeking partners. And we, again, partnered with a production company as well as Angelo to kind of pitch this, right? You're pitching it towards either movie companies, potential investors, to do it privately. There's a lot going on.
But I see your Caitlin Clark jersey back there, and now it's just a real opportune time, I think, to have something about girls basketball. I mean, the country is really wrapped up in women's basketball now, and I think it would do really, really well if we can get the darn thing done.
I totally agree. I think now's the time. I think the country is really needs something like this. And again, with all the popularity of Caitlin Clark and the Iowa team and the Iowa basketball and the history of the state, and it's a perfect time. I'm optimistic that something's going to happen here. Yeah. We've got the right people involved. I mean, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that I was going to write a book and the screenwriter for Hoosiers and Rudy was going to write the screenplay for it, I would thought you were crazy, right? So we've come a long way. We got to get it to the next step. But everybody's doing the right things. The timing's good. The book and the story obviously is what that is. The screenplay's really good. We've got, an unbelievable screenwriter that wrote it who supports it. We got to find the right partner.
Need a good title, and that would be Gym of Dreams.
Gym of Dreams. Yeah, I doubt the movie's going to be called Maynard 8 Miles,
Probably
but it's
not, yeah.
probably, who knows? But
Yeah.
it's interesting because just the way the screenplay's written, and I won't go into too many details, but there's not a ton about my dad's basketball. So the love story is there, certainly, right? That's huge, right? But there's not a ton about my dad's basketball because they don't want to take away from what my mom and her teammates did, right?
Sure.
It's amazing how Angelo kind of weaved that in to the screenplay.
Brian, and I know Coach Ryan has had great success at the coaching level, at the college level, and he's a producer. What's his knowledge on the 6-on-6 game? Does he know the 6-on-6 game?
Yes, he does. He was a coach at Platteville, Wisconsin for maybe 20 years, right?
Yeah,
and that's right basically on the border of Iowa. He knows all about 6-on-6. He knew my mom and he knew my dad obviously very well. In fact, when he read this, we had a Coaches versus Cancer event that Bo Ryan puts on. I was there as with some friends and whatever, and he had read the book. I hadn't really talked to him too much about them. And there's 1,000 people in them. And he gets on the microphone and goes, "Is Brian here?" He's talking about me? "Come on up here. I'm going to, whatever I make off this or whatever we get out of this, I'm donating to this to Coaches versus Cancer. You tell this group the story about your mom's cancer and story." And so here I am, unannounced, unprepared, talking in front of 1,000 people because Bo Ryan wanted me to tell the audience of, Coaches versus Cancer about my mom's cancer and her journey and the book and the story. That's how dedicated Bo is to this thing. In fact, he really pushed me hard to try to get to Angelo, right? And so remember I told you earlier that I got there and I brought up Bo Ryan to Angelo, and Angelo respected Bo Ryan and the Badgers, and and so that helped a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this, Dale and Jim. I mean, but that's kind of the Bo Ryan involvement.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how things kind of come together, isn't it? A little piece here, a little piece there, and pretty soon you got something really big. So that's what I think it's wonderful. I think it's great how it's all come together. So.
Without giving away backing and everything, you always hear about financing. Do you go to a bank for this? Do you go for an organization? What do you pursue?
Well, I think those are great. That's a great question. Well, first of all, the options are partnering with one of the major media companies, right? That's an option, right? Where they just, they love the story and they want to do it. But yeah, I mean, as far as financial options, all the above, I think again, the people that are helping me try to do this are going, they're looking at all options.
Yeah.
Banks, individual investors, companies who would be a good partner on this. So it's too early to say, but just all those options are still open.
And you read a lot about investors all at once. They're trying to take over the project and change it to suit themselves. And, they're worried more about their investment than they are about the telling of the actual story. And so I would advise you to be careful of that.
Yep.
I'm very wise in those areas.
And the people are involved are absolutely going to be careful.
I'm sure they will. Yeah, because it's a labor of love for you, and you won't let them steal it from you. I'm sure that's great.
The Steve Brown Arts Center is trying to do a documentary on the Grinnell basketball system. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, Brian. It is a fast-paced, trap everywhere, sub every 35 seconds.
Yeah.
Beautiful game, and we've spoken to several producers, and they have quoted $2,000 a minute to produce it, and have not just one time. And that is a little bit beyond Dale's budget, So we've been talking to Blake over there, but Blake,
he's got a lot of earning potential.
Yeah. So, but we understand that the issue. That's why I wanted, I wanted to hear your point of view there.
So we're not getting any younger, so we'd like to see it in the next couple of years,
Yep.
All right.
What's your next step, Brian?
Next step in what?
As far as toward the movie being produced and things like that.
Yeah, I think as far as that goes, again, we're actively, pitching this to several outlets, and we're just in the middle of that, right? So that's kind of the next step, is we're still pursuing that, and I'm sure there's some decisions are going to be made here, but nothing specific other than we're looking at all angles and all options. Everybody kind of knows what we have in front of us, right? We have a great story, a great situation. Now we just got to find the right partner.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't asked you that you really wanted to share? How do people lay their hands on your book, and anything that you want our listeners to know?
First of all, I self-published the book through Amazon. So if you just go to Amazon, obviously that's an easy way to get the book. We have a lot of information on our Facebook page, the Maynard 8 Miles Facebook page. So there's a lot of old video. Like I mentioned that video I took of my mom and Glenda in the hotel room. That's out there. I think so there's a lot of information on the Facebook page. I would just say that I get a lot of questions about why my mom never said she played. I don't really have a great answer to that when people ask me about that. I've been on, like I was on a couple TV shows in Des Moines and several articles and stuff. And it seems like, that's one thing they always ask me is why didn't she, ever say she played and what was the situation? And I don't have a great answer for that. My Aunt Glenda, who I love dearly, she's 5'11". She is the only Nicholson out of my aunts and uncles that's still living. And she's, I think, 86 now or something. Yeah, so I stay in touch with her a lot. I actually read the book to my Aunt Glenda over the phone when I was completing the 2 or 3 chapters that talked about their run. I literally read it to her over the phone and said, did I get this right? Is there something I missed? Because again, my mom passed away before this book was released, but she knew that I was working on it. In fact, one thing I'll tell you that's your listeners may want to know about this is a couple months before my mom ended up passing away. Well, first of all, she found out she had cancer in February, and then 9 months later, we lost her. It came as a surprise, and I'm sure that happens to a lot of families. It was September of 2009. Remember, she passed away in November, but September 2009, she had one last wish. She wanted to go back to Maynard, to her family farm, one more time. And my Aunt Betty was still living, so she wanted to see her sister for one more. And she wasn't feeling good. And this picture, I don't know if you can see this picture. This picture is super important to me. We get her in the car and we drive her to Maynard. And again, I still don't know a lot of the story. And I talk about this in the book. So we get to her farm where she grew up. And that's where she wanted her ashes buried. And this was a special place for her. It was raining and she wasn't feeling good. And they had moved the farmhouse that she grew up in. They moved the farmhouse, and whoever bought the farm had this new house on the farmland, but it was still the farm. So we drive around and we're looking around, and my sister and my dad are like, well, we can just go back to Madison. So we start driving away. Again, you go down a dirt road to get to Maynard, which is 300 people, which is not that big anyway. And something hit me, and I'm driving and I'm like, we're not going home. Turned around, went right back to the farm, pull in there to the same driveway, and there's somebody outside. And I'm like, Mom, look, someone's outside. So I go up to the people and I said, hey, do you care if we get out and look around? Well, who are you guys? Well, my mom, she grew up on this farm. Oh, is she a Nicholson? I said, yeah, it's my mom, Carolyn Nicholson. Oh my gosh, come on. So we get my mom out of the car. We go into the farmhouse, we see all this stuff. Then the farm owner says to me, have you been to the high school? I say to myself, I've been coming to Maynard, Iowa for 40 years. I've never been to the high school. What's in the high school? Whatever. So we go to the high school. We pull up. The principal comes out. The farm owner had phoned the school that Carolyn Nicholson was coming to visit, and they all knew who she was. So my mom gets out. And we start walking, and again, you saw the picture. I'll show it one more time. But have you seen the gym? Well, I walk into the school and there's this brand new gym. No. This gym where my mom played. Well, where's that? Well, it's a weight room now. Where's the weight room? Well, it's in the basement. Well, how's my mom going to get downstairs? So we get her downstairs and we walk into this little gym that's now a weight room where the out of bounds is the wall. right, the end line is the wall. And my mom's eyes lit up. She's looking around, and I'm like, Mom, this is where you played. And the next thing you know, there's like 10, 12 people down there because they told the people at the school that my mom was there. So she sat down and she's looking around and she's saying, look, we couldn't even get the ball out of bounds here. You see that up there, those rafters? That's a lunchroom now. That place was packed. Your grandma and grandpa sat right over there. I get this picture. This was the picture I got with her. Pretty special. 2 months before my mom died. This picture. So then we go upstairs and the principal's like, your mom has one of the scoring records here. Have you seen the plaque? I'm like, no, what plaque? Well, there on the wall, Carolyn Nicholson, 3,079 points. And I look at my mom and I said, Mom, you scored 1,079 points? She looks at me and goes, wasn't a big deal. I'm like, so I'm doing the math. I'm like, well, 4 years, 30, 3,000, 30 game, it's like 30 points a game. I'm like, Mom, I made the team as an 8th grader, Brian. So that was super, super important for my mom to kind of have that closure, so to speak. And that's because Maynard's a very special place. And it's a very special place for my family. And I've been going to Maynard, Iowa my whole life. And then Owine, Iowa, of course, is where my dad grew up, which is 8 miles away. Again, the title of the book, Maynard 8 Miles. Again, what happened with that is when I wrote the book, people always ask me, what's the story behind the title? And I said, well, we'd always visit relatives when I was growing up, right? We'd always go to Owine and Maynard for family functions and all this other stuff. And when you leave Maynard, Iowa, or when you leave Owine, Iowa, there's a sign that says Maynard 8 miles. And it's still there. But now it says Waverly 22 or what. But it's literally, and I said, we'd see that sign, and then you'd go down a dirt road to my mom's farm. And I had this vision in my head of that sign. So when I was thinking of what title could work here, it's kind of the connection between my mom and dad. So my dad passed away in 2015, but he was with me on all the book signings and the book tours, and he just had a great time, and it was so nice to have him there. And then the other thing I'll tell the audience is we also had a big reunion and a big book signing in Maynard, and Angelo came up from Bloomington. 9 out of the 10 living players were there with Angelo, and we had this huge book signing. I don't know if you can see this picture, but that was the picture. And that's again, 9 of the 10 living players were there. And we had the school was kind of shut down for this big book event. And Angelo went and wanted to see the farm and meet some of the players. And him and Glenda, were laughing the whole time. It was really great. But those are just a couple of side stories that I thought I'd share with you, kind of the story behind the story towards the end of my mom's life. Yeah. And at the end, at the start, she did not want me to do this. And at the end, I think she was super happy that I was telling her story. And that's what Glenda said as well. Glenda and my mom were best friends. My mom was kind of so Glenda looked up to my mom, not literally, but like my mom was a year older and my mom really helped Glenda out. And Glenda was super helpful after my mom died, trying to finish the book and write the book. And it's a pretty cool story. And again, it's in Maynard, Iowa, and Owine, Iowa. And you guys have lived the 6-on-6. You know what that meant to all the communities. I talked to Barb Fish, as I said, I talk to her all the time. It changed their life forever to be on that team. Maynard had an unbelievable 5-year run. 4 state championship finals in 4 years, 4 in a row. With that, I think, I don't know if you have any questions on that, you guys, but that's kind of, I kind of took you from the start to but that reunion when we took my mom back to Maynard, that's what really fueled me to finish this book.
Well, this has been really great. We thank you very much. It's been wonderful to see you and hear your story. And I've read the book. The book's in our library. If people want to, they should buy it. But if they don't want to check it out, it's an interesting book. I enjoyed reading it very much. So.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And again, I didn't set out to do anything other than to write a nice story about my mom and dad. Sure. And that's what I started with. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Good luck. We are rooting for you. We are we played the Red Devils a number of times.
Blue Devils.
Still see Gene Coyne sitting on a bench with red socks on. and Gene became a good friend of mine in his life for a long time. Though he was one competitive human being. Though
so,
he took great pride in upholding what your mother and aunts had built at Maynard. Basketball was giant in Maynard. It was a big deal.
Well, 5,000 people were lining the streets when they came back in 1956. So think about 5,000 people for a town of 350 people.
Yeah, because there's not that many in Fayette County, probably. Well, there would have been, but it's a lot of people. Yeah, it's a lot of people.
It would have been remarkable.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Really.
We look forward to staying in contact with you. Once the movie becomes a big hit, we want you back on as well.
Well, for your listeners out there, if anybody has any questions or anybody wants to get a hold of me or whatever, you know how to get a hold of me. I'm happy to talk to anybody about this. If they have questions or want to hear the story behind the story, I'm always happy to talk about it.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Okay, this is Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're back. Thanks to Brian Borland for being on with us tonight and talking about his book, Maynard 8 Miles. We have a few announcements, and we'll
I want to tell you, there's some tragic news. There's a lot of bad things happening today, but one wonderful thing, worldwide news is about Travis Kelso, is it? And Kelsey and Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Getting engaged.
Are you the best man in that wedding?
No, but we have our listeners count on us for the breaking story, the stuff that nobody else knows.
I understand.
And I understand that when he asked her, he had this flower garden. I saw 2,000 plants. He had flowers in his little garden. And got her out there and got down on his knee. And she said, yes, of course. And then the second word she said was prenup.
Really?
Yes. And then the third thing she said was, I just figured it out. If we're married, I don't have to pretend to like football anymore.
I can understand.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
so, that's all I got.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
If you get a chance to go see the school auditorium and the classrooms, the new stuff, it's really fantastic. They had a tour last week. It's really fantastic. And they had a man, Mr. Beener, was playing. They have a grand piano on the stage. And I went clear to the back and sat, and the sound is just as beautiful, with no microphones, just as beautiful as you would ever want to hear. I think it's going to be a fantastic facility for the school for a long time. And I hope people will support it when they have programs and this sort of thing. Job well done, Jesup Community School. I think you're right up there with your facilities. They're as good as anybody's, and just a wonderful job.
So we have a few announcements. Thank you, Dale. John Casey from Evansdale is our latest artist in M's Coffee. Mm-hmm. You get a chance to get over and see John's work. We've shown John before at Littleton Watermelon Day, and John is spectacular.
Is that not till the 1st of September, or what is it there now?
We
okay.
are in.
You're going to do it the
September.
first. Yeah, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every week I screw that.
I get confused too. Don't worry.
Well, I worry about when you get to my age, every time you make a mistake. Okay, is this the end of it? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Don't forget the third Sunday of every month we do a jam session. We have one more time where we're doing the jam session in the pavilion across from the post office.
Okay.
Come to the pavilion, not the gazebo, please. Although a lot of people want to blame me for that, I will take that blame. It's the pavilion. Don't forget we have the artist collaboration the fourth Monday. Forgive me. I get confused now.
Well, good.
And we did it this past Monday. We did it at Gedney's Coffee.
Uh-huh.
And that was just a few artists and myself, and we had a great conversation. John Klotzbeck was there.
Okay.
Those of you that didn't know, John was on the podcast, and John is retiring from the Independence Bulletin Journal.
I did not know that.
He will be done at the end of September.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine, she's 75. She worked at the Old Wine Register, and she retired. A few weeks later, they called her and said, "Can you come in and help us?" Well, now she's the editor. She works full time again.
Yeah.
So he may not get out of there alive, you know.
Yeah, he's talking about a trip soon as he retires.
Well, yeah, it's wise to get out of town, yes.
Yeah. Don't forget our 24-hour Mustang camera, sponsored by Joe's Pizza in Independence, Iowa. Don't forget we're looking for 12 artists for next year in M's Coffee. We change the artist out at the beginning of every month. I was looking for 12 artists this year and found them all. Found our December artist. Going to try to get her on later this next month. Dale, and we talk a lot about this, today is when my gratitude outweighs my expectations are mighty good days, and today's been a mighty good day. I've enjoyed this day.
Yeah. It was just wonderful. The technology allows us to talk to this man in Wisconsin, and he has the Iowa connection, actually, the Northeast Iowa connection, not that far away.
No.
And if you get a chance, his book is in the library, and it doesn't take many days to read. It's a short read, and you'll recognize a lot of things, which is always interesting when you read a book.
Right.
You'll recognize people and places if you're an older guy, you've been around a while. The girls' basketball is great, but it's interesting what he writes about the Wisconsin men's basketball team that the Borland, his father, played on, because that's an interesting time that people have forgotten about too, when freshmen weren't eligible. And Wisconsin had such a good recruiting year that their freshman team beat their varsity every time they played them, and they were the best, probably one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but they couldn't compete because they were freshmen.
Yeah.
And it's hard to us to believe they had rules like that, but they did.
If you'd like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center or have an idea for an event, go to the SteveBrownArtsCenter.org and follow the link, or go to our Facebook page and direct message us. If you have any news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@SteveBrownArtsCenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. I'm Jim Gillespie with co-host Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. Our thanks as always to Kelly Seahaas and Cowork 591 for hosting us and sponsoring us. I don't know what we'd do without them. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your life, and remember, and it gets more important every day. Each day is about little victories.